Donald Trump is declared the winner of the 2024 presidential election in what many are calling the greatest political comeback in American history. The chief pollster at Trafalgar Group will explain what he got right that other analysts missed this election, and later we'll explain what Trump can do for the MAGA movement by holding Big Pharma accountable. We're going to have those stories and so much more. Blaze News Tonight starts right now. Welcome to the chaos. I'm Hillary Kennedy, filling in today for Jill Savage. Today is Wednesday, November 6th, a great day. And earlier today, Kamala Harris, she gave her concession speech after being defeated by Donald Trump. Here's what she had to say.
The outcome of this election is not what we wanted, not what we fought for, not what we voted for. But hear me when I say, the light of America's promise will always burn bright.
So much to talk about. Here to discuss with me is Matthew Peterson, editor-in-chief of Blaze News, and BlazeTV host Steve Deace. Man, okay, we have a ton to get to. Steve, I want to take what your immediate thoughts are hearing Kamala's concession speech. It took a while for us to get it out of her, but what do you think?
I think it's really unprecedented to go that long without hearing anything whatsoever. Frankly, it makes you wonder what was going on. They didn't talk to the press. There were no leaks. There were nothing. We didn't see quite the amount of civil unrest anywhere near it that we thought we were going to see last night either. And I think I'm very concerned about that, honestly. There's over 70 days until the inauguration. I don't think they're going to just take this lying down. I don't think that we're through the mess yet. I think it'll be a fight to get to the inauguration for sure. And so I hate saying this, but I kind of just felt like they just spent the last 12, 14 hours basically just plotting out. And so especially, and let me tell you what makes me really suspicious, and man, I hate thinking this way, but unfortunately the last few years has done this to me, right? Yeah. What really concerns me is how magnanimous the phone call apparently was and this speech was, because I don't trust that at all. Okay, and so let's just say you were plotting out some of the tactics of George Floyd funerals of the past that we have seen, and some of the other Chaz destabilization events we've ever seen. When you started out by having the candidate come out and give a magnanimous event and speech and say, hey, it's time to unite and a peaceful transition of power, and emphasize that too, right? Get that all on the record, get that all on camera. Well, then you sit back, and then when events come, well, I mean, these are organic events. People just feel like their freedoms were threatened and taken away. We had nothing to do with it whatsoever. So, yeah, to quote the great prophet Flavor Flav, can't trust it.
So, I mean, I have mixed feelings on this. Part of me thinks, I mean, let's take it to the the lowest common denominator, the shallowest interpretation, right? Would be you just got your what handed to you. You spent a bunch of hours looking for any way out, for any outs, and there were none. And then you realize, you know what? We have to be good little boys and girls right now because we just got a shellacking, and it's out in the open. The entire world knows we just got beat down by the entire country, and this is a mandate majority. And then all of a sudden, what struck me about this speech is she comes out, and it's always when they get their beat that you all of a sudden hear about the Constitution and God and the face of a stranger and the dignity of the human person. And you're just like, who is this woman?
After running a 6-month campaign on we want to eradicate as much dignity of the human person as we possibly can.
Right?
Yes. So there's going to be this front comes up all of a sudden. Now, notice also, it goes to what you're saying, The View, right, as well. Their interpretation, was it you telling me this earlier? I haven't seen it, but someone who did see it, well, I know they saw it, saying that The View is the same way today, where their take was the high road. Well, at least we concede. Right, she made, just like you said, she made this this call, and so that does. So if I'm taking your line right now, I mean, what does that mean? That means that we're going to live to fight another day. When?
Well, and
Tomorrow is another day, Scarlett O'Hara. Tomorrow is another day. Yes.
so where does that leave the MAGA movement? Like, what do we need to be doing now? Because obviously the wheels are already turning. Either they're going to try and do something before January, or they've already got something in place for 2028.
The number one, there's two priorities I think that we have. Number one is, and again, I mean, I can't even imagine going and telling my 2012 self, I'm going to say the kinds of things I'm saying right now, but here we are. Again, I say that again. But in all seriousness, they have to make sure, they have to secure the president-elect. They have to make sure he's safe. And I mean, I'd be down at Mar-a-Lago with a moat of alligators and cannons, okay, until the day I have full-fledged Secret Service protection. You know, I think you have to keep the president safe. Number one. Number two, though, Donald Trump right now has more political capital than any person on the right has ever had. And this week, Mitch McConnell's going to try to make sure that there's a voice vote election for the next Senate Majority Leader to succeed him. And he's got a bunch of limp-wristed, empty-suited, corporatist shills that he's been training, like John Cornyn and John Thune, just sitting there waiting in the wings. And what Trump cannot allow is for that to happen. He needs to take his considerable political capital, Matt, and insert himself and say, we're not going to have anybody running a Senate majority that's going to thwart my agenda or my mandate. I think those are the first two priorities before anything else, in my view.
I want to go into that more, but before we leave Kamala, do we have the video of her talking about the stars? Can we play that?
There's an adage an historian once called a law of history, true of every society across the ages. The adage is, only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. I know many people feel like we are entering a dark time, but for the benefit of us all, I hope that is not the case. But here's the thing, America, if it is, let us fill the sky with the light of a brilliant, brilliant billion of stars.
I just, before we left Kamala, I just wondered if you had an interpretation of that. Maybe a translation.
That's just dreadful. I mean, it's just really bad. I have no other analysis. That's just dreadful performance art. It's just dreadful.
By contrast, Donald Trump was declared the winner of the 2024 election just before 2 a.m. Eastern, and our own Jill Savage, she was at Trump headquarters and could provide us with a clip of his victory speech.
I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day I will be fighting for you with every breath in my body. Deliver the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be the golden age of America. That's what we have.
Okay, so Steve, I want your take on this. Trump is promising a lot there. How do you think that this administration will be different from his first?
There's two things I've seen already. Mark the tape. I am optimistic about. All right.
Noted.
Finally.
That's like you guys were drinking over in Sarah Gonzalez's studio before you came over, weren't you? All right. And actually, yes, I did have a little champagne. I'm going to confess. So I'm feeling a little loosey-goosey right now. Yes. All right. Let's let it rip.
This is
all right.
good.
But in all seriousness, there's two things I'm optimistic about. Number one, it was intentional the amount of times in his talk last night he referenced the people and not himself. And I don't care if you have, shall we say, a prodigious ego like Mr. Trump has, or one that you have much more in check than he typically does, to resist the temptation after taking bullets, lawfare. Let me have E. Jean Carroll take your kid's inheritance from you. Let me try to put you in Rikers Island and go through all of that after coups and everything else, right? To go through all of that and to get this level of vindication from the American people, it would take an Augustinian friar's level of restraint to not stand up there and say, how you like me now, right? Okay. And the fact that he, of all people, was able to resist this and turn it back and say, it's about you. It's about the country. That gives me a great amount of optimism moving forward, okay, number one. And number two, talking to some people and working the phones today and some of the conversations I've had, they are way ahead of where they were at this time in 2016 in terms of planning and plotting a government, scouting talent, knowing who they want. I mean, like layers deep. I've talked to people who've already had 3 interviews with the transition team already for major positions. Yep. So the level of homework that is being done here, all right, way ahead of where they were in 2016. And his approach and messaging last night was just, I love to say it, it's downright statesmanlike is what it was.
I agree. Matthew, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is what we've been saying since last night. I mean, the difference is going to be night and day. I mean, there's no comparison the level of preparation. But it's interesting what you say about the rhetoric, because on the one hand, we see Trump really not restraining himself, but more than that, like channeling, like you said, to say something positive and to use the words of a statesman. On the other hand, we have this walk back by the left, let's call it, right? I mean, MSNBC, we have this video, seem to retreat on some woke issues like men and women's sports, men and women's sports just yesterday. Like, I mean, roll this one. I mean, this is happening all over.
Democrats should be smarter on the women's athletics thing. 85% of Americans oppose men transitioning after puberty and competing against women. And I'm not just saying this the day after the election. I've been saying this for years. This is not a hard call.
So, Steve, I mean, here, Trump is elevated to the stars, like Kamala might say, with rhetoric that really is inspiring, that you can go back to and listen to, and it's ringing in the ears of many Americans. And then on the other hand, we have this, should we call this a reflective moment for Joe Scarborough, although he claims he's been saying this all along?
Yes, I've played a voluminous amount of clips of Joe Scarborough calling for justice for women in the athletic realm, including when his network broadcast the Olympics earlier this year, which of course never happened. I think ultimately you're going to see, we always talk about, and especially me, the internal strife on the right and the varying and warring factions. And so vis-a-vis by extension, guys, we seem to then mean, or think that means that it's just, I like to buy the world a Coke over there on the other side, and they're just all singing off the same hymnal. Winning has victory as 1,000 fathers, defeat as an orphan, as JFK said. And I think right now there's tension on their side between people who want to go and double down and say, this just proves how racist and misogynistic and xenophobic the patriarchy of this country is. And then other people who might be Marxists, but they're not also necessarily clinically insane. And that's what I think Joe Scarborough is articulating. And what's going to be fascinating moving forward is Trump has created a coalition that transcends the old left-right Venn diagram. It's one of the reasons why at times as a hardcore conservative ideologue, I have been frustrated at times with this era of politics. But the new coalition is sane versus insane. And the reality is I don't need to have ever read Milton Friedman, William F. Buckley, or the Bible to think, it just really looks really weird when a 6'5" dude with an Adam's apple and 5 o'clock shadow is competing against 8th grade girls. That's kind of strange, right? And they're insane, guys. And they're going to have to figure out what is more important to them, and that is a winning agenda or being sane. And that's the conversation and dialogue that's going to take place over there the next few years.
Well, and we can't, if we're talking about the legacy media and how they're handling this and the insane takes that they have on things, we can't leave out CNN. So over on CNN, a pundit declared this a victory for the working class.
I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids. And they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives.
All right. So, Steve, does this mark a significant turning point for the media narrative? Because I think they've realized we are the media. The common man is the media.
Well, I think his name's Scott, Matt, I believe, right? The guy in that clip. Mm-hmm. Scott there's been a lot of clips that I've seen this year where Scott has attempted that on CNN to inject some form of sanity into and I must confess, they don't typically handle it very well. That's ultimately what's going to determine this. and the direction that they take this. And to me, the thing that really, the whole thing of you're all Nazis, you're all fascists, there's two possibilities with that kind of language. Number one, you really believe it. That's scary if you do. Let me tell you what's even scarier in my view, if you don't. And yet your will to power is so craven and so nihilistic and reckless that you are willing to just cynically inject that venom and pit us against one another and step over us as we're killing each other over that so that you can acquire power. I would actually prefer they really mean it, frankly, if you asked me. Then I'll just cynically use that kind of language. And then afterwards, it's, okay, guys, we'll do this again in 4 years. Back to the pro wrestling. That is no way to run a culture. That's no way to live together. And I think the next couple of years, we're going to learn that a lot about the Democratic Party. Do they really believe this about us? If they do, they'll respond one way. If they don't really believe this about us, but it was just a tactic, they'll respond another.